So, Tulsi Gabbard went on The View, and they had a pretty extensive conversation. But as you could probably guess, the conversation did ultimately end up revolving around her visit with Assad and Venezuela. Now, I did cover the exchange between her and Ana Navarro about the Venezuela situation and how a lot of that was just, well, simply put, not factual. And if what was factual was only what was factual from what Ana Navarro was perpetuating was only partially factual. And it didn't really have the context included in her explanation, which, of course, this is mainstream television, right? And even if it wasn't mainstream television, it isn't like Ana Navarro is like a political scientist and an investigative journalist or anything like that. She's going to say what she's told to say, and she's going to probably say what she believes because, well, the mainstream media sometimes drinks their own Kool-Aid, right? This is the same mainstream that said that Kamala Harris was the front runner not 4 days ago and had a rude awakening when Bernie Sanders announced. So now I want to pivot over to the conversation between Tulsi and Meghan McCain. Most of it, Tulsi killed her. I'm not literally, clearly. She bodied her. She schooled her. Meghan was rude. She was interruptive, but Tulsi, she behaved with poise and class as usual. One of the things that we love about her. But there was something problematic that has to be addressed. And it's funny because the first time I watched the video, I actually didn't catch it. I think I was listening to it while I was driving. And then I went back because people tagged me in it. Again, asking me what was up. And then I found out it was said. So we're going to go over the great things about the things she said. And then we're going to go over the problematic things. Take a listen to this video.
Woman, first, thank you for your service, which is something I say to everyone who has served that comes on the show, and I think it's important. That being said, my understanding is you know how I feel about your stance on foreign policy, and when I hear the name Tulsi Gabbard, I think of an Assad apologist. I think of someone who comes back to the United States and is spouting propaganda from Syria. You have said that the Syrian President Assad is not the enemy of the United States, yet he's used chemical weapons against his own people 300 times. That was a red line with President Obama. That is not our enemy. 13 million Syrians have been displaced. So when you say regime change is hurtful for the country, but gassing children isn't more hurtful, it's hard for me to understand where you come from a humanitarian standpoint if you were to become president.
Well, you're putting words in my mouth that I've never said.
You did not say that Syrian President Assad is not the enemy of the United States. Say it now, clarify.
The issue here is how can we help alleviate the suffering of people?
Just really one moment. Is he an enemy of the United States?
An enemy of the United States is someone who threatens our safety and our security. There is no disputing the fact that Bashar al-Assad in Syria is a brutal dictator. There is no disputing the fact that he has used chemical weapons and other weapons against his people. There are other terrorist groups in Syria who have used similar chemical weapons and other weapons of terror against the people of Syria. This is an unfortunate thing that wrenches at every one of our hearts. This is not something I'm disputing, nor am I apologizing or defending these actions. My point is that the reality we are facing here is that since the United States started waging a covert regime change war in Syria, starting in 2011, the lives of the Syrian people have not been improved. Their well-being has not gotten to a better place. Their suffering has not decreased. It has increased, in addition to the fact that Al-Qaeda is stronger in Syria today than ever before. So not only are we dealing with the fact that this regime change war we've been waging in Syria has not helped the Syrian people, it has made their lives worse off.
Bashar
it has also,
his people
it has also
either.
undermined our national security, leaving us in a place where Al-Qaeda is a stronger threat there than they ever have been before.
Okay, so first I want to go over the great things, right? Tulsi is right. By any definition, any real definition, Bashar al-Assad is not an adversary or an enemy of the United States. By any real definition, any legitimate one, Maduro isn't, right? Bashar al-Assad is in Syria and was minding his own business. And coincidentally enough, just happens to be en route to an oil pipeline, and has his own oil in which he nationalized it. And for some reason is also a dominantly secular government. And for whatever reason, the United States has problems with secular governments. I can't imagine why. So when Meghan McCain tries to constantly assert that she's an Assad apologist, first of all, that was extremely disingenuous. It was an outright ad hominem attack. And matter of fact, just about every attack on Tulsi from Meghan McCain, except for that bullshit, oh, thank you for your service. Really? Come on. You can't thank her for her service and then not respect her knowledge and not respect her or her position. I mean, she was talking about, she used to have to read off of a list of her dead brothers and sisters in arms to make sure that people from her brigade weren't there, right? You don't respect her because you're not respecting her perspective. And although I do understand that Meghan McCain, her brother chose to join the military, let's be very realistic. Meghan can say whatever she wants about Syria because she personally nor her family are going to be forced to go there because they have the means to pick and choose whether or not they decide to join the military. And same with everyone else on that panel. And I think I want to be very clear about that because it's easy to talk about what someone else did when you know that you're not going to be put in front of a bullet to justify going there. It's very easy. But when you've seen people die and being part of a medical unit like Tulsi Gabbard was, nah, it's not as easy to just say, let's go to war every time you get your trigger finger starts itching. Very rarely have we entered any war because of humanitarian necessity. We haven't. Kim Iverson actually brought up in one of her videos, what about Myanmar right now? We didn't enter Yemen to counteract Saudi Arabia. We actually gave Saudi Arabia weapons and they're using them right now in Yemen. The bill for the bill to stop arming Saudi Arabia and to end the war in Yemen was introduced. And my only complaint was that it didn't go far enough because if there was ever an opportunity to jump into a war because of a humanitarian necessity, that was it. That was it. But that's not what happened. Israel, Assad's using chemical weapons on his own people. We're going to address that. Even if that was true. This man shot or allowed the shooting of 50 innocent Palestinians protesting and justified it. He defended it. But you don't see us in Israel either because they're a democracy. Yeah, right. And what about Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia isn't a democracy, but you don't see them on them either. You start to see a little pattern happening, right? So once again, Tulsi handled herself with just poise, with class, with dignity, and her ability to sit back. It's very calm. And when you're on television and when you're a public speaker, it's always interesting for me to observe your mannerisms because people when they get uncomfortable, you can tell. When they get frustrated, you can tell. 98, even if they're the most poised that they can be, even Bernie shows when he gets frustrated. But Tulsi has this calm about her, this tranquility to her. And she allows you to finish speaking without ever cutting you off. And then she responds. But she refuses to let you cut her off because she's still a leader. And she's still a fighter. So that is always what impresses me about her, not only her speeches, but just when she engages on television, when she knows she's going to be attacked, going into any interview like this with the idea that I'm going to be attacked. And then being able to say to yourself, now I know I'm going to be attacked. So let me just combat with the facts. Don't let them control the narrative. Be calm, be collect, and show that you are every bit as presidential as you need to be for this country. That's how she handles herself. It's beautiful to watch. Now, here's why that frustrates me, because we're going to get to this part of the video. Let me premise all of this by saying, I know that you're probably watching this video, Tulsi, or you're going to see it, or your family is going to see it, people from your campaign. You know, whenever I'm speaking right now, it's from the heart. You know that I'm speaking the truth. And it was you in your campaign ad who said that they fear you in your campaign because they fear the truth. It was you in your announcements and in your campaign ad, and actually in this interview, who said the CIA is responsible for coup after regime change after coup, and you yourself even spoke about the lies they used to overthrow Mossadegh. You talked about this in the interview for The View. You said in your campaign that you wanted to channel your JFK, your truth. And that truth has to be based in fact. And if we don't have the truth, then we don't have anything else. And you know that's what your campaign is all about. So when you said it's absolutely true that Assad used chemical weapons on his own people, when you said that is absolutely true that he is a quote unquote brutal dictator, quote unquote, which from any Syrian I've ever met, I've never heard that before. I've met a lot of them. But even still, I would just say, I don't know, right? That's the easiest way to say. I don't live in Syria, but that's completely inconsequential as to whether or not we should be there. But also it's completely inconsequential and contrary, really, to what we know, to the facts. The facts are why I can admit I don't know. The facts are why you yourself have said in the past, he's not our adversary. The facts are why you yourself would not say when they have tried to time and time and time and time and time again, he committed a gas attacks. He committed it. Speaking at his facts, he committed a gas attacks. He committed them. Don't you remember? Don't you remember? He committed them. And you never agreed because we just don't know. We don't know the facts, but the facts are what tell us, well, we don't know if he did it, but the facts are what lets us know that we don't know. Okay? Here's what I mean by this. When we perpetuate that lie, and that's what I call it, I will say that it's a lie because the mainstream is manipulating a narrative of chemical, because there was at some point chemical gas attacks in 13 and then 14 or 15, one of the two. I say it's a lie because the assumption that Assad did the gas attacks was also based off of another organization that ended up being corrupt and is being investigated for war crimes. And you know this, I'm sure. And it's important that the people know this. But not only do you know this, not only do I know this, but your supporters know this, Tulsi. And I want to be very clear about that. That's why I'm doing this video, because I'm hoping that this does get back to you. And I know that you have the purest of intentions, and it may have been a flinch, but you have to understand something. The reason that people are separating you from Bernie is that truth that you represent. People continuously say, you're better on foreign policy. You're better on foreign policy. You're better on foreign policy. You're to the left of Bernie on foreign policy. You can push Bernie on foreign policy to the left. And it's true. I know it is. Because you don't mention Mossadegh without knowing the truth. Very few politicians even know about that situation. You know about the lies the intelligence agencies have told. And I want to be very clear about something. Even if you don't know about everything else, we both know one thing. We all do. Meghan McCain said absolutely with 100% certainty, 300 chemical weapons attacks. Meghan McCain said that. CNN said it. MSNBC said it. Obama said it. John Bolton said it. Trump said it. Mattis said that there was no evidence, but they're going to go find some just so he could be able to say the same thing. Think about that. Remember how they all blamed Assad and only 2 people spoke out? I think, actually, I lied. maybe one, and it was Rand Paul who came out and was like, there's absolutely no proof of that. Why are we even launching missiles? And it turned out he was right. That was just the most recent time. So these people, they don't use truthful narratives to attack progressive allies. You know this, just off of just the logic, right? They use CIA, FBI, intelligence agency improved narratives to attack you from the right every time. You know this, right? So just off of that, you should know, even if you don't know the whole facts, all the facts about the entire situation, you have to know that if Meghan Kelly, or excuse me, not Meghan Kelly, her too, but Meghan McCain, if she is trying to goat you into agreeing with her, it is because it serves an agenda which is antithetical to your message and your mission. Now, let's observe some of the facts. Because I don't want to just, you know me, I'm about the facts. And the facts don't really agree with Meghan. Let's just look at this CBS News article from 2013. The title of the article is, and I'm going to post all these articles in the description below so you all can see and start piecing together the truth for yourself. Because this is one of those situations where I will include articles. There's a reason I don't include articles on all my stuff, but there's a whole different conversation. Maybe one day I'll explain. But today we're going to go ahead and post these because this is really important stuff. CBS News reports Syria chemical weapons attack blamed on Assad. But where is the evidence? The London Prime Minister David Cameron told British lawmakers Thursday that there is no 100% certainty about who is responsible for the apparent massive chemical weapons attack on suburban Damascus on August 21st. Nevertheless, Cameron asserted, from all the evidence we have, his government, along with the Obama administration, had made the judgment, not this is 100% true, the judgment call that the regime is responsible and should be held accountable. Also, just like the Obama administration, Cameron's government has yet to explain exactly what the evidence of Assad's culpability is, or even where it came from. That's just one example. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because Damascus, if I'm not mistaken, is where Assad resides. It's kind of his stomping ground, right? If I'm not mistaken, Aleppo is on the other side of that fence. I could be mixing them up. But I think I'm got it right. He doesn't have, if I have it right, caveat, don't quote me on that, but if I have it right, and I encourage all of us to look it up afterwards, he doesn't have any incentive to bomb the people living in Damascus because he needs Damascus to be under his control, because that's basically his territory. He is no military strategy in that. You have to look at incentive. Why would I be incentivized to bomb the people who support me? For what? Why would I want to give the United States and the West an excuse to be in my country more than they've already invented? So it doesn't make any sense for him to bomb Damascus. And it seems like other people kind of felt the same way. They were like, oh, there's absolutely no proof of this. This isn't from my words that they don't have the proof that connects these particular chemical weapons attacks from 2013 to Assad. This is CBS News saying this. Okay. So in the Telegraph UK, they're talking about the, I believe this is the 2015 attacks. Yeah, the 2015 attacks. Okay. So from the Telegraph UK, they were discussing how the United Nations Security Council, except for Russia, China, and was one of their allies, Russia, China, and one more ally, basically were like, nah, we're not being part of this nonsense. It's a kangaroo court. But the Security Council swore up and down, he's guilty. He's guilty 100%. Okay, what's the proof? Look, we just know that he's guilty. Probably. I don't know. Let's just launch missiles and figure it out later. Right? The Telegraph says that the U.S. and other council members have repeatedly blamed the Syrian government for the chlorine gas attacks, saying no other party in the 4-year civil war has helicopters to deliver the toxic chemicals. That's actually not true. we have the helicopters. Also, it isn't actually the helicopters. A lot of the time they said they were throwing barrels, but they don't. But also, like, we have the helicopters and we arm the rebels. So if we're arming the rebels, giving them technology and giving them access to our technology. And by the way, France and Great Britain are in Syria. So to say that there was no one, but the thing is, you can't ever assert something like that. If somebody says, well, couldn't it be one of you all? Oh, no. Hell no. You're off the Security Council. Just interesting, right? So they constantly have said that 100% accurate. Assad did it. But here's the problems with all of this. I don't know if y'all know who Seymour Hersh is. Seymour Hersh is a damn genius. The man is on a different level when it comes to investigative journalism. I feel embarrassed when I have to say his name in anything, not because he's not great, but because he's so just out of this world. I can never imagine being so well connected with so many governments, so many whistleblowers, and then winning a Pulitzer Prize for all of his investigative work. Well, not all of it, but for some of his investigative work, and never being disputed. Never. Because his facts are so good, you can't really argue with them. The great investigative journalist Seymour Hersh, in 2 previous articles in the London Review of Books, has reported that the Obama administration falsely blamed the government of Syria's Bashar al-Assad for the sarin gas attack in 2013 that Obama was trying to use as an excuse to invade Syria. And Hersh pointed to a report from British intelligence saying that the sarin that was used didn't come from Assad's stockpiles. Hersh also said that a secret agreement in 2012 that was reached between the Obama administration, the leaders in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar to set up a sarin gas attack and blame it on Assad so that the United States can invade and overthrow Assad. That is not me. That is Seymour Hersh, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, never been disputed, never been argued with, 100% track record. Nothing short of the investigative journalist version of WikiLeaks, if you will. That's not me. These are the facts. Now, some people may ask for corroborative evidence, and I have no problem with that, but that's cool because I got some. So who were the ones saying that absolutely 100%, we know for a fact that Assad gassed his own people? We know that for a fact. Who gave us the tip? Who gave us the hint? Well, that was the White Helmets. I don't know if you know much about the White Helmets, but they were the gun-ho group of people in white helmets that were 100,000 volunteers who just happened to form right around the time the war started, about early 2012, late 2011. And they just were all over every camera doing a bunch of humanitarian work. Hey, you know, everybody was so happy and hype about them. Then it turned out, well, Russia called them out first, right? But they weren't the only ones. A lot of independent journalists were catching on to them too. They're like, yo, y'all are really quick to be at these events. And then they got caught out for like, they were handling people, but like their equipment wasn't like They weren't wearing any equipment to handle chemical weapons attacks, and it was getting exposed. People started asking questions, and now they're under investigation to the point where the United States even had to cut them off of their funding. Oh, what? Are you? Yeah, you heard me right. We were funding them. We accounted for 1/3 of their entire funding, along with the other humanitarian aid that we gave to Syria. Anytime that we are the leading giver of humanitarian aid in any given country, for some reason, their government always ends up toppled, or there is a great effort to destroy their economy, cause massive deaths and famine, and in an effort to destroy their dominating government, whatever that may be. Anybody, you should know this by now. So why would the United States be giving anybody money who wasn't there to serve their interests? You gotta wonder, because we don't do that, right? We give Israel money because they serve our interests. We give Saudi Arabia weapons that were used against the Yemeni people because they serve our interests. We gave weapons to Saddam Hussein because at first he was serving our interests. And then, unfortunately, he wasn't, because he was going against Saudi Arabia's little situation, and then they attacked us with our own weapons. That's where IEDs came from. Who do you think taught the people, the rebels, the terrorists, how to make IEDs? They're improvised explosive devices. We taught them. Yeah. That happens often, by the way. Our weapons get used against us. So the white helmets that started around 2012, 2011, they realized that they couldn't possibly, learn how to do the things that they need to do to convince the world that they were on the side of justice and peace and altruism unless they got some training. So guess where they went to go train? Turkey. That's right, Turkey. The same Turkey, by the way, that you just heard me mention from Seymour Hersh, who said that Turkey had a pact with the United States and Saudi Arabia to overthrow the Assad government. That Turkey. Oh, but the story is so much better because there was another chemical weapons attack this was the 2017 chemical weapons attack. No, excuse me, I lied. This is a 2015 chemical weapons attack. And of course, they were like, well, how do we know that the chemical weapons attack was committed by Bashar al-Assad? We don't know, but it was a terrorist organization one of the rebel groups. It was on the 3rd of December. It was a demand letter from the rebels near the city of Aleppo. They emerged on several Twitter accounts. I'm going to post a link to these here. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let you see. What made the letter truly significant was the fact that one of the signatories to the document was a representative of the white helmets, using the insignia at the bottom of the letter, because they all stamped where they were from, like the various organizations they were from, which you can see in the link in that letter. So they have all the different rebel groups that are together, and then they put the stamp for the white helmets. You know why? Because they were also cutting off water supplies and other things to people in Aleppo. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I don't get it, because all the facts are here, and knowing what we know. This is what the article says, just really quick. On December 31st, Jordanian news Al-Bawaba reported that ISIS had shut down 2 pumping stations on the Euphrates River to leave over 5 million residents of Aleppo without water. The report appeared to have originated from Iranian news source Press TV on the same day. The shutdown of the water supplies to Aleppo appears to be an effort on part of the rebel groups to strike back at the Syrian government. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Once again, unless I'm mixing them up, which I could be. I don't think I am, though. Aleppo was at the time controlled by the rebels. And therefore, if you want to keep Aleppo under your control, you have to keep convincing them that Bashar al-Assad is the evil guy. So what do? It's false flags. You cut the water supply off and blame him. Now, the White Helmets, it should have been pretty clear that the rebels they were going to be on the side of the rebels. But the White Helmets were involved in that incident, and they signed it right there. This isn't me. This is right here. I'll post article. So when I say all this stuff is important to understand, it really is. I can't stress enough how important this information is, because once again, I don't know if he's guilty or innocent, but I know the facts, and the facts tell me the United States is not to be trusted when it comes to issues of regime change and the excuses that we create and what we would be willing to do to make it happen. You yourself, Tulsi, mentioned Mossadegh. So you know what lengths we'll go to secure any oil supply from any country or government that may be perceived as an economic threat going forward. And you know what they'll do to keep these government or these defense contracts coming in. You know this. So that's why it's important that we lead with our truth, with our aloha, as you would put it. That's why they fell in love with you. What differentiates you from Bernie at this point if we don't talk about the reality of regime change? Not the watered down version, don't quote them, but the reality of regime change. I got all the love in the world for you. You know that. I have all the respect that I can have, about as much as I can, for any presidential candidate or any person, any service member, any sister or brother in arms that I've had in the past. Because you were speaking from an entirely different perspective than most have been willing to speak from openly for a very long time, especially coming from the brass. When you're an officer in the military or a former officer in the military, they always tell you have to be Republican to get up, to move up. So I respect you and what you've done. But let's not forget what they fear. Like you said, what they fear is the truth. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.